What a witch. Thinks she's better than me, and he has the nerve to bring this chick to the house? You played the wrong game with the wrong girl, Calvin. Holly looked through her binoculars. She didn't want to cry, but tears of anger overflowed down her cheeks. She had been spying on Calvin for some time now, and she was devastated to find out the painful truth. Holly was in her late 20s. She was a working woman who tried to make the most out of her busy schedule. She spent time with Calvin. She went out with her friends. She even made time for workout routines at the gym every morning. Her friends thought she had the perfect life. They all thought of Calvin as an innocent, loving, and doting husband who came home to his wife and child playing together after a long, hard day of work. If only they knew what Holly knew. Calvin was cheating on her. Unfortunately for Holly, it wasn't easy to catch a man like Calvin red-handed. Calvin had cameras set up all around the house. He said they were to prevent crazy people from breaking in or prowling around the house. Apparently, there were stalkers in the neighborhood. Holly and Calvin lived in Imperial, California, in a nice, large suburban home. Their neighborhood rarely had any petty crimes, let alone break-ins. Holly knew the cameras were just a precaution, a secret alarm to her coming over from work whenever he would have the other chick inside. He later cleared out all the footage, leaving only evidence of him going out for work in the mornings or back from work alone. But when Holly was home, she knew his mistress had been there. She found her clothes in the closet and her earrings on the dresser. What did Calvin think? That she would be deluded her whole life? She wouldn't find out? Holly even found out the babysitter was involved in all of this. She was getting paid double to make sure Holly wasn't around at the wrong time. It had been a few weeks since Holly had been spying out. Every time she saw that woman enter the house, it enraged her so much, her blood boiled. And the more she witnessed it, the more she wanted to barge into the house right then and there and finish everything off. Holly wanted to cry every time she remembered the last time she had actually been close with Calvin. It had been a while since they actually spoke to each other heart to heart. They had grown apart. Holly thought it was her fault. She wasn't trying hard enough. She was ruining the relationship, but it wasn't her. It was him all along. He had someone else on his mind. Calvin, some of my friends are hosting a get-together. Everyone from the office will be there. I really wanted you to come along. Holly, I told you I don't have time for these things. You don't have time or you just don't want to go? Look, it's not that. You know very well I don't have time on my schedule. I told you before, don't make these plans with me. When I have a little spare time, I just want to spend it with you in privacy. We've been together for so long, and most of my friends haven't even gotten to meet you. Does that really matter? What matters is to save our time for only each other. Now that Holly rethought every conversation, every action, every gesture, she could see the double meaning behind it, the deceit, the pretension, and the cunningness. It was yesterday that Holly had managed to go through his phone. There was a certain honey on his phone. It obviously wasn't Holly's number. I'm missing you so much, babe. It's been long since we got some time together. I'll be home from work early. It will be just you and me. Holly set her mind. It was time to end it all. She knew Calvin would be home earlier than he usually was, before her. Holly left for work that morning, but she would be back. The babysitter was with the baby right now. But when Holly would return home today, she would dismiss her once and for all. She was just another one of Calvin's greedy pawns. It wouldn't be hard to buy her out. Holly barged across the front lawn and knocked on the door. The babysitter cracked open the door and looked out. She was a bit surprised and confused to see Holly. She looked here and there across the street and whispered, "Miss Holly, you've arrived already? Mr. Calvin hasn't arrived yet." Holly walked in, pushing her aside. "You can go home. You're off duty." The babysitter looked at her strange. "What do you mean? Mr. Calvin didn't tell me anything." The girl was young, only about 15 years old. Holly looked at her sternly and took out a wad of bills from her bag. "Nancy, take this and leave." Seeing the money, the young babysitter didn't put up much of a fight and left Holly be. Holly went straight to the baby's room. She smiled at Emma, sleeping sound. She then went back out and sat in the living room. She put up her feet on the table and leaned back on the cushion, waiting for that witch to arrive. Holly was getting a little drowsy. But sharp at 5 p.m., she shook off all the sleep when she heard a noise of a car driving into the parking space. Holly's heart started to pace fast. It was time to pull off the rest of the plan. Holly went straight to Emma's nursery. In moments, she heard footsteps walking down the hall towards the room. The door behind her cracked open. Holly stood firmly, her back facing the door. She clenched her teeth. It was time for payback. But to her surprise, the woman walked straight past her without paying much heed. "Hey Nancy, how is everything?" she said as she went to the crib and started cuddling Emma. This witch was so blind she mistook Holly as the babysitter. But that's not what bothered Holly. What bothered Holly was that she even knew the babysitter's name, how involved she was in Calvin's life. Holly's eyes fired up with rage as she watched the woman cuddle Emma, whispering, "Hey there, cutie pie. Did you miss me? Did you miss Mama?" Hearing her say Mama tipped over Holly's scale. What did this woman think of herself? Did she really think she would ever replace Holly in Calvin's life? She would take Emma away from her? The woman patted Emma back to sleep, speaking over her shoulder. "I suppose you're ready for your pay then. I know Calvin told you he would pay you double today. Thanks for being here for us. We never would have gotten any time for ourselves if it wasn't for you. Just give me one moment. I think I left my purse in the living room." The woman smiled at Emma a last time before she turned around and froze in her place. Her eyes widened in confusion and fear. "Who are you?" she said sternly. Holly took out the flower vase she had been gripping behind her back and lunged forward, scowling at her. "Who do you think I am, you?" Holly caught her off guard, just as she planned. She was out cold. Holly stared at her, unconscious on the floor. "You think you're better than me? You think Calvin really loves you? You're just another woman. You can never take my place." Looking at the woman's pretty little face filled Holly with disgust. Without giving her conscience another thought, she let her instincts take over. Holly straightened out her shirt. Her hands were stained. She took a glance at Emma. Emma hadn't realized anything. Just then, Holly heard a voice from the hall. It was Calvin, just on time. "Scarlett, are you in the nursery?" So that was her name. Scarlett suited the color now smeared across her face. Holly stepped out of the nursery. Calvin froze in his tracks. "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be..." The look in his eyes changed quickly to a glance of fear. He knew he was caught in his lie. "You thought I wouldn't find out? You thought you were going to get away with this?" Holly screamed. Calvin tried to push Holly aside, playing defensive. "Where's Scarlett? Your mistress? You won't be seeing her anymore. In fact, you won't be seeing anyone anymore." Just then, Emma started to cry in the nursery. Holly made a run for it as Calvin followed. He was horrified to see Scarlett laying lifeless on the floor. Emma screaming out in fear, seeing the mess around her. Holly gripped the broken, stained vase off the floor and turned to Calvin. Calvin backed away. "Look, I'm sorry. I know what I did wasn't fair. I'll give you whatever you want, but just don't hurt the baby." Hurt the baby? How could he think Holly would hurt Emma? Holly had enough of Calvin's drama. "How could you think I would ever hurt our child?" she said as she pounced on Calvin. Calvin furrowed his brows. "Our child?" he yelled before everything went black. Holly dropped the vase and immediately went to soothe Emma. She took her out of the crib and got her ready. Emma was young. Hopefully, she wouldn't remember anything. Holly cleaned her stained clothes and grabbed the keys. She locked Emma in her car seat and pulled out of the driveway. The police would arrive soon. Before they would take Emma away from her, Holly had to get out of here. She would go to a new city, start a new life, find a better husband. "Don't worry, Emma. Everything's gonna be fine. Mama's here." A man named Calvin Koenig and his wife Scarlett Koenig were found lifeless in their family home in Imperial, California. Their infant child missing. During the police investigation, a witness came forward to testify the culprit's identity. Apparently, Calvin Koenig had been involved in extramarital affairs, and things seemed to get out of hand. "I didn't do anything. I wasn't involved in anything but that I hid Mr. Calvin's affair from his wife. He was giving me a lot of money for it. I didn't think things would get out of hand. I was just there to take care of their baby." You heard it, folks. A tragic event for the Koenig family. Keep your eyes out for this woman and report anything suspicious to the BII police. This is BII News, live from California. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.